And let me call on Donna Jackson, President of the Detroit Federation of Paraprofessionals and an AFT Michigan Vice President, and Eric Rader, President of the Henry Ford Community College Federation of Teachers. First, Donna will present Resolution 6, the 2022 Bergman Award. This resolution is on page 37 of your book. Donna?
Thank you, David. This is always an awesome time and a great part of the convention to be able to recognize the great work of individuals. And in this case, the first time this year, we are Human Rights Committee is recognizing the Bergman Award go to an organization. This resolution recognizes the great work done by the Student Advocacy Center of Michigan to work towards their vision of every student in school supported and engaged since 1975, and honors the organization with our 2022 Walter Bergman Human Rights Award. The center is a coalition partner of ours within the Michigan Education Justice Coalition and provides essential support services that includes a robust Know Your Rights resource hub to help students and families navigate the education system and focus on school discipline, special education, homelessness, immigrant and English language learners, pregnant and parenting teens, foster care and GED and alternatives, and tools for educators like their school discipline, bias mental checklist, rethink discipline toolkit, and the lesser intervention checklist to help educators examine their own practices and implement change at the classroom and the building level. So on behalf of the committee, I move that we adopt this resolution.
Thank you, Donna. You know, one thing I should have said when I first brought this up, so my fault. My guess is there's a lot of people on who don't know who Walter Bergman was, right? You have to remember that. Walter Bergman was the first president of what was then called the Michigan Federation of Teachers. Walter Bergman was a freedom writer. Walter Bergman was a leader in the ACLU. As a matter of fact, the ACLU published a book about Walter Bergman. So it is wonderful that we have this long-standing award, as Donna talked about, in his honor. So Donna has moved the resolution, moved by the committee. If there is no objection, I suggest that it be adopted by acclamation. Does anyone wish to debate this resolution? Seeing no one, I declare it adopted by acclamation. Donna?
Great. So accepting this Bergman Award on behalf of the Student Advocacy Center is Anell, Eccleston, and I apologize if I've messed your name up. He's the Director of Care and Sustainability. In this role, he supports the organization's efforts to combat school pushout and end the school to prison pipeline. Anell, thank you for joining us today. Anell?
Thank you. Thank you, Donna, and thank you, AFT, for recognizing us for the Walter Bergman Award. Donna, I appreciate you giving my name a shot, and you were right on with that. So I've had my fair share of fumbles over the name over the course of many years. I just want to kind of elaborate on some of the work that we do, and then also provide a message for you all as well. So at the Student Advocacy Center, we believe education is a human right, and every youth is worthy of a quality education. Every day, we work to help Michigan students K through 12 get back in school, stay in school, and grow in spaces where they feel safe, heard, loved, and challenged. We are composed of social workers and teachers who are passionate for ensuring all students have the opportunity to be supported in completing school. We work collaboratively with underserved students and their families to stay in school, realize their rights to a quality public education, grow, and experience success. We have offices in Detroit, Ypsilanti, and Jackson. At the core of our work is our passion to build authentic relationships with our students, families, and schools. Without striving to build authentic relationships being at the focus, we are all missing the mark. I attended high school in a predominantly African-American community on the west side of the state. As a student athlete, I was fortunate to have won a state championship in football my senior year. When I look back on that experience, I do remember those good times, but I also remember how some of my teammates didn't come back to school shortly after. I remember seeing them in the community where they would tell me that they, excuse me, that they had to go to an alternative school or they started taking classes online. I don't recall too many of them at graduation. As I have grown in my career, I have made the connection to what had happened. They were pushed out. My high school was very under-resourced, and I too experienced suspensions and minor infractions. This is why I have dedicated my career in social work to advocating for students that may be on this track to face the same outcome. I use my why to drive me in my work with students, with their families, schools, and their community, because it does take a village. As you all are teachers and educators, I call you to action today. I implore you to think back to your why. Why did you dedicate your career to education? Was it because your parent or caregiver was also an educator? Was it because you wanted to impact lives through education? Or was it because you didn't want to see others face the same fate you experienced as a student? Regardless, at some point, you all hoped and aspired to make a difference, to create a path for all students to have an opportunity at success and a different life that could impact their generations to come. At some point, you all wanted to be change agents and make the system better for all students, regardless of their socioeconomic status, their gender, race, disability, or even sexual orientation. Again, I encourage you to reflect on your why. Why did you decide to be part of this village? For those working in K-12, we all know you all are striving to build that authentic relationship with your students. But the reality is, you all are under-resourced. I'm sure you all can think of ways and strategies how your teaching can engage students, can be enhanced around additional resources. However, at the core of this, it places a strain on your ability to build that authentic relationship with all your students, especially if you have a classroom of at least 30 kids. With that, we want to thank you for all your passion that you bring to the classrooms and that you bring to a school building each and every day. We know that that cannot be an easy task. Nonetheless, taking the time to learn a student's history outside of what's written on paper can enhance their intrinsic motivation to learn. As they begin to develop that relationship with you, they'll be more open to being held accountable by you. Through this, you will innately enhance their social emotional capacity to engage in their classroom, to engage with their peers, to engage with you all, and more importantly, to engage in their community. School should always feel like a safe space for all students and not just for those that fall in line. As COVID has shown us, there's no such thing as falling in line when it comes to education. We have been stretched thin and forced to be creative in delivering our service to our students. However, the trauma that COVID has placed on our families and communities should never go unnoticed, but thought as an opportunity to do education differently and become more inclusive. Survey your students, survey your parents, ask them about the impacts of COVID has had on their lives at home. Ask them what they think would be helpful for addressing these impacts when it comes to school. Let's slow down, make space for those conversations, invite them to the table. And remember, it does take a village to raise a child, and you all can be the leaders of that village. As some of you may have climbed the ladder into higher education, please remember that your impact on students matter, whether you are directly or indirectly serving them. I encourage you to push for a deep dive into examining your entry requirements for all students, particularly those that have experienced harsh discipline or court involvement during their K-12 experience. Complete qualitative studies on K-12 schools that may be in the MDE's priority status. Inquire about students' perspectives on college readiness. Then use that data to create a path into your institution. The reality is, due to harsh discipline practices, challenges at home, being in foster care or identifying as homeless, and disabilities, students may unintentionally get an unfair shot at entering into your higher ed institution. All students have the potential to be great and successful students on all levels of education. It's important to take into account the trauma that students experience throughout their K-12 career and directly apply equitable approaches to assess the impacts of trauma that, if not handled appropriately, can contribute their involvement into the school to prison pipeline. Take their adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, into consideration. And when reviewing those scores, take into consideration the potential impacts those experiences may have had on their education. And yes, we want to see students that can excel in their applications, but maybe your institution is that place for them to excel, and they just need that chance. You, higher educators, can be the savior for students today and change their path for generations to come. Again, it does take a village. Now, some of you may hear the term school to prison pipeline and get defensive. I want to be clear today. Schools do not intentionally send a student from school directly to prison, and it takes a multitude of factors to lead a student down that path. However, the start happens at a very young age. When we see a student in second grade or third grade receiving their first out of school suspension, it increases the likelihood of them continuing to be suspended from school. As they continue to go through K-12, they receive multiple suspensions and possibly an expulsion. We need to be very careful to not normalize school removals as a form of discipline. As a former juvenile probation officer, I work to advocate to lower youth recidivism rates so that we do not normalize the institutionalization of our young people. And the majority of my youth then received multiple suspensions and expulsions from school. This connection can happen when a school or district doesn't have the funding for a paraprofessional to support a student one-on-one, or proper trauma response and professional development opportunities for teachers and staff, or even a heavy police presence in your buildings. Let's all commit today to become more trauma responsive in our discipline practices and explore alternatives such as restorative practices to develop accountability and enhance students' social emotional capacity. Also, let's commit today to dig deep and progress out of the school to prison pipeline and into the cradle to career pipeline. To wrap this up, I want to share a story from one of our students that was collected with our most significant change survey. When I first got into the program, I didn't want to at first. I thought it would be useless. But as I went through it, I started learning about seeing life differently. I recognized that I am the youngest in my family, but I got brothers and sisters that looked up to me. So I got a lot of responsibility. Patience is significant because I'm a fast-paced kind of guy, and I need to see results right away. And when I don't see the immediate results, I bail. But the mentorship introduced me to different things and encouraged me to slow down and take the environment in more. The program helped me know that it's okay to seek help and ask for help. A lot of Black men and boys have this thing that's like, it's not okay to seek help. And we're taught to always have that I can do this by myself mentality. But it's all right to ask for help. Sometimes you might need it. And most definitely about my family. I decided that I wanted to make a change after recognizing that my actions in the past hurt my family. And me being the youngest and most outgoing in my family, I had to be more responsible. I had seen a lot of things change. My dad has been more open and more outgoing. I can see a light shining through my family now, and it's like we have this new aura. Through our passion to build authentic relationships, this student has not only seen changes within himself, but changes within his family dynamic. You all have the same ability to touch each and every life that walks into your colleges, walks into your school buildings, and most importantly, that walks into your classrooms. Again, we are very grateful to be honored for this award. And please remember, always, always remember your why, as the future generations of our country are in your hands. Thank you all.
Thank you, Anell. Thank you for your insightful and motivating remarks. And of course, thank you for the tremendous work of the Student Advocacy Center. Myself, Eric, and Donna will figure out, maybe we have you into an ad board meeting, maybe it is a Student Advocacy Center event where we could formally present the award to you. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.